Hello, everyone. We'll give folks a minute or two before we get going. Buenas tardes a todos. Vamos a darle un minuto o dos a todos para que se puedan conectar con nosotros antes de comenzar. Give one more minute before we get going. Vamos a darles a todos un minuto más antes de comenzar. So welcome everyone. I still see some folks joining in on the waiting room, but I think we'll get going. We do have a number of presentations, so we want to make sure we provide time. So, gracias a todos por estar aquí. Vamos a comenzar. So before we get started, we do want to start with our interpretation instructions. So antes de comenzar, vamos a compartir las instrucciones para acceder a los servicios de interpretación. Voy a hacer esto primero en español y luego en inglés. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to share the interpretation instructions. I'm going to first do this in Spanish and then I'll do them in English. So, para todas las personas que nos acompañan hoy a través de su tableta o iPad o de su teléfono inteligente o smartphone, favor de localizar el menú en forma de 3 puntos en la parte inferior de su pantalla. De ahí pueden seleccionar Language Interpretation o interpretación del lenguaje. Y enseguida pueden seleccionar su idioma, en este caso el español o Spanish. Para todas las personas que nos acompañan hoy a través de su computadora, pueden localizar el símbolo de interpretación en forma de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Hagan clic ahí y después elijan su lenguaje en español o Spanish. Ahora voy a dar las instrucciones en inglés. Here are the instructions in English for all those joining us tonight through their tablets or iPads or through their smartphones. Please locate the menu in the form of 3 dots on your screen. You can click there, then select language interpretation, and then select language of your choice. In this case, it would be English. If you're joining us through your computer, you can locate the icon in the form of a globe for interpretation at the bottom of your screen. You can click there and then select English as your language of choice. So we'll give folks a second. And one reminder just for all presenters, we want to make sure that we are allowing our interpreters to catch up in the presentation. So we do ask that you keep a moderate pace when you're presenting. That allows the interpreters just to catch up with interpretation and kind of makes everyone's life a little bit easier. So just a reminder there, we'll get going. General reminders of how to participate. We kind of go over this at every meeting, but it is a good reminder. Please use the raise hand feature. If you do have comments, something you want to add on, a question for the presenters, it is a good way for our team to be able to see the queue, who's up, and who wants to share a comment or a question. You can also use the reaction buttons, and then the chat's also a good way to share comments, questions. We're always looking at that, so if there's anything that comes up, feel free to also add that in there. Our meeting agreements, so go through these. So I want to make sure we're creating space for everyone to contribute. So be just mindful of that, step up and step back. So in those moments where we're providing all the comments, sometimes it might be an opportunity to step back a little bit and listen to others participate. Only one person speaks at a time, so that raise hand feature is important on that. We want to make sure we're listening to each other. We respect each other's opinions, knowledge, and perspective. We want to be conscious of time. A lot of times we pack these agendas with presentations. We want to make sure we're taking advantage of everyone's time here. So just be mindful of that time. And then just speak slowly and clearly for the interpreters. So again, for presenters and also for CSC members. So with that, I'm actually going to move over to hand over to Brisa. Brisa, if you can lead us through roll call.
Sure. Thanks, Christian. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with Alicia Sanchez, Andrew Aguilar.
Presente.
Okay, thank you. Andrew Aguilar.
Good evening, I'm here.
Thank you. Ashley Valentin Gonzalez,
Present.
Carmen Arroyo, I do see them here, so I'm just going to mark them present. Carissa Ayala, and I know there are.
I'm here, sorry.
Hi. There are a few new CSC members joining us today, so during our roll call, if you could just please unmute and say present, and we'll mark you here. Thank you. Carmen Gaxiola.
Presente.
David Ramos.
Here.
Jack Monger.
I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening. Janice Luna Reynoso.
Sayed Carrillo's here as her proxy.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Torres. Liana Rios.
Liana Lino here.
Got it, thank you. Jose Marquez Chavez. Brent Burge.
Here.
Josephine Talamantes.
Present.
Thank you. Carla Nava. Keith Corey. Shelby Busso. Carrie Robinson.
This is Kat Mattel on behalf of Sandag.
Thank you. Kyle Heiscala.
Sorry, Carla Nava is here. I couldn't turn on my microphone on time. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, Kyle Heiscala.
Hi, Teresa. This is Jasmine Vargas with EHC. We're trying to set up orientation earlier today.
Okay.
I'm here for Kyle.
Thank you. Philip Gibbons.
Here.
Margarita Moreno.
Presente. Ya que tienen la asistencia, nos podemos poner.
Martin Reeder. David Welch. Montserrat Hernández.
Presente.
Nick Creedy.
I'm here.
Great, thank you. Roman Partida Lopez.
Here.
Rosalba Ayala.
Here.
Salvador Razo Ábrica. Stephanie Yoon.
Here.
And Vanessa Contreras.
I believe you missed Massey Hatch.
Sorry, thank you. I did skip a couple of the alternates, so if your primary was here, I will go through our list and mark your alternate if they're also here. Alrighty, we have 21 present, 8 absent, and we reached quorum. Thank you all.
Yeah, excuse me, this is Sylvia Calzada. I don't know if you said my name. This is my last day today, though. So
Okay, I will make sure to add you onto the list. Thank you, Sylvia.
thank you so much.
And I see Rosalba, I think, might have tried to go off mute. Rosalba?
Presente.
Presente, okay. Gracias, Rosalba. So I'm gonna go back to our presentation. So just a quick overview of our agenda for today. So we are doing a roll call right now. We'll be going through a health risk reduction plan from NASCO. We'll be providing that presentation, and Drew from our CSC will be part of that. Then we have the Marine Clean Air Strategy, MCAS implementation. Then we'll also then have a little bit of a quick kind of part 2 for our defining success presentation that we had our last CSC. We'll be doing that very quickly, and we'll see. Hopefully we have time. If we not, we might end up moving that to the next meeting. But that will take us through public comment and then adjournment. Moving on to our next item, which is actually our approval of last month's meetings. Notes. So they're on our screen. I know that there have been some changes, I think, with our attendance list. So we're hopefully capturing that and making those notes. And then we have our Spanish notes as well. So at this moment, we'll like to see if someone would like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from last month. So we can see.
Carrillo will motion to approve.
So Yatsi as first. Do we have a second? So we're looking for a second for that motion.
Yo.
Montserrat? Okay, so we have Montserrat as a second. So we'll see if there's any discussion before we move on to a vote. If there's anything anyone would like to add. And if not, then we'll move for a vote. So all those in favor say aye.
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 All those thank you. All those, and I think we're ayes, and all those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. So with that, then that moves to approve the meeting minutes from and notes from last meeting. So I'm going to pull back our presentation. If you can bear with me for a second. That'll move us to our general updates. So a couple things. We do want to note that the Port of San Diego community conversations are happening on Wednesday, November 5th. So that is next week, I believe, at 5:30. These are happening in person. So we do want to share that. I'm not sure if there's anyone from the port that would like to come add anything else beyond that. But I know this information is also going to be shared with as part of the weekly digest with folks.
Thanks for that, Christian. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our presentation coming up.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
This is another big one, Shalom. I think you're on deck for this, but if you can give us a quick update on this, on the strategic plan for APCD.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian. So APCD has a draft strategic plan currently out for community review and feedback. Just high level, a strategic plan is essentially a document that is going to provide guidance to the air district in terms of articulating its vision and mission and what goals we're setting and the steps we'll take to achieve those goals as well. So it's really an overall guidance document for the air district for the next 3 to 5 years. There has been about a year and a half ago, we actually started community engagement for the strategic plan. Many folks here engaged in that process. And it's been a long time coming. What makes the strategic plan incredibly unique is that for the first time in San Diego Air Pollution Control District's history, it will have a strategic plan. Previously, before AB 423, which then transitioned the Air District to have a different governing board, the overall strategic plan for the county, APCD was kind of under that umbrella. So it's a really unique document, very special in the sense that it's almost a kind of a founding document in terms of APCD's transition. The public comment period will remain open until November 17th. There's a QR code. I know folks, maybe Jazz will be putting a link in the chat box as well, where you can access the full report. And then also there's a really easy and accessible way to submit comments online as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Lauren. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Shalom. And then I believe I do see that Jazz added the link information in the chat. Jazz, maybe if you can copy it again, just to make sure that folks see it coming in the chat. Moving on, Lauren, I believe you're on deck as well, so we can have just a general update from the Office of Environmental Justice.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Environmental Health Coalition. The EHC invited us to take part in their Rice Resource Fair in Barrio Logan. It was a really awesome event. We got to see a lot of CSC members there. I saw some people in person I haven't seen in a long time, and if not ever, maybe. So it was a really great event. A lot of wonderful resources shared with community members. Just sharing some pictures from the event. Always doing my monthly plug to let us know if you have any events coming up that you're aware of, even if you're not planning them, even if you're just aware of them. Please share them with us if you think they would benefit from us sharing our education and our resources there with community members. And you can always reach out to me. My email is here, and I will also drop it in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. Hopefully folks reach out. Always good to see the team out there supporting with events and resources. So with that, we're actually going to move into our first presentation. So we have Nelson and Andrew. I think both are going to be tag teaming this presentation. I believe I saw both of you on here, so let's see.
Yeah, I'm
both.
here.
Right. Hey, Nelson.
Hi.
See you. And then Andrew, I believe I saw you as well. So we'll go ahead and hand it over to you. So.
Thank you, Christian. Good evening, Portside Community Steering Committee members and members of the public. My name is Mohsen Nazemi, and I'm the Chief of Engineering Division at San Diego County Air Pollution Control District, or SDAPCD for short. I'm here this evening with a few of other APCD team members to discuss a plan proposed by General Dynamics National Steel and Shipbuilding Company, or NASCO for short, to reduce the potential health risk at their facility located in the Portside community. Along with me also, we have Mr. Andrew Aguilar, Environmental Engineering Manager at NASCO, who will also present some additional information about NASCO's operations. We can go to the next slide, please. NASCO has been designing, building, and repairing ships since 1960. This map shows an aerial view of NASCO with the facility boundary shown with the blue line. NASCO has approximately 50 air permits from San Diego APCD, and those permits have been issued for various operations that can emit toxic air emissions, including abrasive blasting, coating, solvent cleaning, diesel engines, and welding. All permits have several conditions to ensure ongoing compliance with applicable air quality rules and regulations. And our compliance team inspects NASCO at least quarterly to ensure compliance with all permit conditions. We can please go to the next slide. So let's go over some of the main operations at NASCO critical for shipbuilding and repair. Abrasive blasting, or more commonly known as sandblasting, is the process where you force an abrasive material, which could be silica, sand, steel grit, or other material, against a surface under high pressure to remove the surface material or smooth the surface. Marine coating is applying a type of protective coating used mostly in marine environment to protect ships, vessels, tankers, and other material from seawater or freshwater corrosion, abrasion. And diesel engines provide power to cranes and dry dock. And finally, welding is to join together metal surfaces by heating the surface to the point of melting. We can go to the next slide, please. So as previously mentioned, we're here today to talk about NASCO's risk reduction plan, but we would like to start with a quick background of the state law, also referred to as the Air Toxic Hotspots Program, and San Diego APCD's Rule 1210 that requires this plan. Under the Hotspots Program, the San Diego APCD calculates toxic air emissions from facilities and calculates potential health risks from those emissions. The health risks are calculated based on health protective protocols established by the state of California. If the calculated potential health risks are above the thresholds that are established in San Diego APCD Rule 1210, then the facility is subject to public notification and submittal of a risk reduction plan. We can go to the next slide, please. These are the type of health risks that we evaluate from facilities, including NASCO, for purposes of requiring public notification and risk reduction plans under the hotspots and Rule 1210. Cancer risk is the probability that a person would contract cancer if exposed to a specific level of emissions for 30 years. Cancer risk is expressed in terms of the increased number of chances in 1 million of developing cancer. For example, a risk of 10 in a million, which is probably more familiar with percentages, which is equivalent to 0.001% chance, means that if 1 million people are at the same exact spot for 30 years and exposed to the same exact level of emissions, there's a chance that 10 people might develop cancer due to that exposure. But for non-cancer, we also use health hazard index, which is calculated for health effects that are not cancer related and include both acute, which means short-term health impacts such as skin or eye irritation, as well as chronic, which are long-term health impacts such as bronchitis or asthma health effects. And a health hazard index value below 1.0 indicates that there is no adverse health effect expected from exposure to the air toxics emissions. You can go to the next slide, please. Now, this slide provides the calculated, on my screen, we didn't go to the next slide, did we?
They separated the cancer risk to the health hazard index.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We just addressed that.
Okay, so the previous one was cancer risk, and this one is the health hazard index for non-cancer health effects. Sorry, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I can move one more forward, which is
all right. Thank you. This slide provides the calculated potential health risks from NASCO's 2021 emissions that required public notification and health risk reduction plan. Please note that these are maximum potential health risks and not all residents or workers within the impacted area are exposed to these same cancer risk and non-cancer risk levels. With that, I'll give you a little time to look at this table. But after this, we want to take a look at the operations that contributed to these risk levels. Okay, so the table shows what the health risk from NASCO's 2021 emissions are in that middle column, and then the columns to the right of that shows what the thresholds are in San Diego APCD Rule 1210. And as you can see, the cancer risk for residential and chronic risk for worker and acute risk, which is short-term, chronic is long-term, for residential and worker exceeded the thresholds in Rule 1210. Now, if we can go to the next slide, please, to look at the sources contributing to these emissions. If you look at the graph on the left-hand side, shows how NASCO's operation can contribute to the increased cancer risk. As shown by the graph, the largest percentage of the potential cancer risk, or about 61%, comes from welding operations, followed by marine coating, which is about 20%, and diesel engine emissions, which is about 16% of the risk. The maximum calculated potential cancer risk is 28.4 in a million. And again, in percentage, that equates to 0.00284%. It's based on emissions that occurred in 2021, and this calculated risk is health protective since it assumes that a person is exposed to the emissions 24 hours per day, 7 days a week for 30 years, and considers some of the exposure and susceptibility at early ages amongst other conservative assumptions. If we can move to the next slide, please. This map shows the boundary of the area potentially impacted by the elevated cancer risk of 10 in 1 million, or 0.001% risk. The blue line shows the facility boundary. The map also shows where the maximum elevated cancer risk of 28.4 in a million, or 0.00284%, was calculated to be at. And as previously mentioned, not the entire impacted area exposed to this level of maximum calculated risk. The QR code provides the interactive mapping tool where you can see all the facilities under the Hotspots program, including NASCO, but other ones as well. Can we please go to the next slide? This graph shows how NASCO's operations can potentially contribute to increased chronic health hazard index. And again, chronic means long-term. This is for people who work outside NASCO. Chronic health hazard index estimates the long-term health impacts such as bronchitis or asthma. And as shown by the graph on the left, about 90% of the health impact comes from welding due to nickel emissions. And then the calculated health hazard index is 1.07. The threshold for no adverse health effects is 1.0. So it's a little bit above. If we can go to the next slide, please. The map shows the area potentially impacted by the elevated chronic health hazard index. And the blue line again is the facility boundary. And it also shows where the maximum potential chronic health hazard index was calculated, which is right outside the property line. And as previously mentioned, not the entire impacted area is exposed to this maximum calculated hazard index. If we can go to the next slide, please. This graph shows the NASCO's operation that can potentially contribute to acute or short-term health impacts for anybody living outside NASCO's property or working outside NASCO's facility. An acute health hazard index estimates short-term health impacts such as eye or skin irritation, And as shown by the graph, over 90% of the health impacts comes from welding due to nickel emissions. We'll go to the next slide. It also shows the map of the area potentially impacted by the acute risk. The blue line again is the facility boundary, and where the maximum potential acute health hazard index was calculated is also shown for both residential and worker. And again, not the entire impacted area is exposed to the max levels. All right, now let's go to the next slide. In order to further reduce the potential cancer risk, NASCO Risk Reduction Plan has proposed the following. They've proposed additional controls for their welding school, where they train their workers and students for welding operations. Specifically, it proposes capturing and filtering control the welding emissions, passing them through a high-efficiency filtration system. They are also proposing to replace the two largest crane engines with upgraded, latest, cleaner engines at their facility. If we can go to the next slide, please. In order to reduce so the first two proposed measures were for reducing cancer. Now, in order to reduce the chronic and acute impacts, reduce the health hazard index, NASCO is also proposing to reduce the nickel content of their filler material with lower nickel content for the welding operations in their facility. Now, if we can go to the next slide, based on the controls provided in NASCO's risk reduction plan, NASCO is proposing to reduce all potential health risks to below the thresholds established by San Diego APCD Rule 1210 within 5 years for non-cancer health effects, and for potential cancer risk will be reduced to the levels shown in this table, and NASCO will continue to work on reducing the cancer risk beyond the 5 years as required by San Diego APCD Rule 1210. If we can go to the next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed timelines for the risk reduction measures. The welding material substitution is already in progress and expected to be implemented this year. The welding school hoods and control systems, they are conducting the initial evaluation and expected completion, meaning permitting and complete the construction in first quarter of 2027. For the engine replacement, the first repower refers to replacing the engine with a newer engine. The either crane 15 or 16 will be conducted with initial planning, permitting, and completing constructions in October timeframe for 2027. And then the second replacement of either crane 15 or 16, whichever one is left to be replaced, would again be conducting initial planning, permitting, and construction and completed by December of 2028. We can go to the next slide, please. So in this table, we can show that since NASCO's plan proposes to reduce the potential cancer risk to 21 in a million within 5 years, and the APCD Rule 1210 requires facilities to reduce that to below 10 in 1 million in 5 years, we would like to discuss the requirements in Rule 1210 in order to obtain an extension beyond the 5 years, which is allowed under the rule. As discussed in the slide, in order to apply for an extension beyond the 5-year period, the facility must install the most effective and feasible emission limitations or retrofit emission control devices or control techniques on all the equipment that contributes to the risk above 10 in a million. Rule 1210 also requires public notices comment period and public meeting for extension requests. And NASCO has not submitted an official extension request since the feasibility evaluation cannot be conducted at this time, because in 5 years, technology might advance, enabling additional control measures to be installed. And this slide also provides the QR code for APCD's Rule 1210, in case you want to see what the rule requirements are. If we can go to the next slide, please. After the controls proposed in NASCO's plan are implemented and the cancer risk reduced to 21 in a million.
Mohsen, sorry. I think that we just want to discuss the requirement for public meeting in the event that an extension is considered. So that's just to highlight that. And I think we can move to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I couldn't see the slides. I was reading my notes. So after the controls proposed in NASCO's plan are implemented and the cancer risk is reduced below 21 in a million, about 85% of the remaining risk is from welding and marine coating operations. Currently, there are challenges in further reducing risk from these operations since capture and control technologies are not feasible. Specifically, some of the welding and coating operations must be conducted on the ships as shown by these images, and therefore there is not any technology available to effectively enclose and control these operations. That said, NASCO will continue to explore alternatives, and the district will ensure that all requirements in San Diego APCD Rule 1210 are fully met, which includes public noticing and public meetings annually, and also submittal of progress report. We can go to the next slide, and then I'll hand it over to Andrew. Okay, so we'll now have Andrew Aguilar provide additional information regarding NASCO's operations and measures that have been implemented to reduce emissions and health risks.
All right. Thank you, Mohsen. Appreciate that. And good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Aguilar. I'm the Manager of Environmental Compliance at NASCO, and I am the successor to some of you who, as part of the CSC, who may know her as Sarah Joby. She had since retired, and now she left a stellar environmental program that I am excited to kind of share some of the highlights of what we do on a day-to-day basis with you all here, and I hope to continue that legacy. So next slide, please. So this may be a bit of a refresher for most of us here, but NASCO is the only full-service shipyard on the West Coast of the United States, meaning that we are the only facility that actually designs, constructs, and builds ships here, apart from just repair. That's another part of our business as well. And so because of that, NASCO kind of sits at sort of this critical nexus for national security and economic development for San Diego and the nation at large. And, given we fully recognize the impacts of our operations, and we have also, through the years, being a member of the Portside community, staffed by many folks that are San Diego residents, San Diego natives, even Portside residents themselves, we've come to really be a local leader in environmental stewardship as well, which is what we're proud of. Next slide, please. And kind of before I jump into kind of some of the additional measures that we took over the years as part of our emissions reductions, because everything that we've mentioned so far in the risk reduction plan are actually on top of a lot of really strong measures that we have taken over the years on a voluntary basis for the most part. But prior to that, here's a couple of other kind of little known facts about NASCO's environmental program. One, from a water quality perspective, some of us may know this, but others may not, that NASCO is what we consider a non-discharge facility, meaning that we capture all of the rainwater that enters our facility, that rains on our facility, and we do not discharge that out into the bay. We actually capture it on site, and we send that to the city sewer. The only time in which we do actually discharge water from the facilities is from our graving dock whenever we're ready to launch one of our ships. And that's done under full control of NASCO. We have a team of engineers and a team of technicians that go out there, and they do a really meticulous cleaning job to ensure that we're not introducing any additional contaminants into the bay whenever we launch these big vessels. From a sustainability side, again, we recognize that, operations as large as ours, while necessary, have a potentially big impact. And so we've been doing our very best to ensure that we reduce our emissions of greenhouse gases year over year with implementation of various projects that we can do to save energy or to electrify. And so as of 2020, we've just finished crunching numbers, and our greenhouse gases are down 22%. And in a part of that, and in addition to kind of some of the other parts that I'll be describing, we were recently, back in September, awarded the prestigious Michelle White Award by the Port of San Diego in recognition of our strong environmental program. So we were very honored to receive the award from the port, and we will continue with this legacy that we are operating with. With respect to our alternate commuting program, we recognize that with more than 3,000 people making a daily commute to one facility, especially one as old as Harbor Drive and 28th Street, we've really taken care to team up with Sandag and offer various alternate commuting options, whether it's van pools, carpools, MTS passes. And so for the third year in a row, we've been recognized by Sandag as the Diamond Award recipient, meaning that we have a really robust alternate commuting program. And from our last survey, we found that we have approximately 65% single occupant drivers who commute to work. And that's actually down from our last survey. So all good news from there. From a waste management side, another really positive fact that we like to share that may not be as well known is that we recycle up to 80% of the waste that comes through our yard. So as you can kind of see down below, thousands of tons per year get diverted from the landfill and go to the right place for recycling. Because we recognize, again, big operations means big potential impacts, and we take it seriously. And some of us here as the CSC may already know is that we've been electrifying our fleets as quickly and as feasibly as we can. And so we were very proud as part of the APCD truck pilot program with the grant. It helped us acquire a new fleet of electric vehicles as well, including 3 school buses, a semi-truck, and one patrol truck, a Chevy F-150, or I guess the equivalent of an F-150, if you will. Next slide, please. And so Mohsen had mentioned that there were several measures that were already taking place here at NASCO, and these are some of the voluntary control measures that we've done with welding. Now, the EPA has a list of recognized best management practices as part of ways to reduce the amount of welding fumes and the harmfulness of some of the fumes. And to date, we've been practicing all of them as a matter of quality control, as well as implementation and environmental stewardship. So among those practices, we only allow for the low fume generating welding methods, meaning that for kind of the higher fume methods, especially for materials like stainless steel, which drive emissions of hexavalent chromium, which is the largest driver of our health risk for cancer, we don't allow that. That's not allowed in the shipyards. Apart from that, we've been trying to minimize the amount through our ship designs of the amount of stainless steel that needs to happen at all. Meaning that if something can be done mechanically, or if something can be done in an outfitting shop, outside of our facility, we'll utilize those options. With respect to welding methods like submerged arc welding, or those that can be, fitted and controlled through HEPA devices, emission controls, those are also being done. And through all of those methods that we use, we also use shielding gas where needed to help protect the weld from a quality side and also from an emissions reduction side. And so in combination of all of these measures to date, in addition to our material selection, which was an opportunity that we were able to capitalize on through consultation with our weld engineering group, we found that over time it's reduced our hexavalent chromium emissions by over 90%, and we hope to keep working on that further. Next slide, please. Oh, and I guess those were all the methods that I shared below. So just some more pictures. Oh, and I'm sorry, I got a comment from our interpreters to slow down. So I'm sorry, I will do my best. I tend to get on a roll and I get very excited. So thank you for the reminder. Next slide, please. With respect to our marine coatings, we implement several measures. First of all, whenever we do spray operations outdoors, we ensure that we are doing them in a shrouded environment meant to capture the overspray and prevent those particles from leaving the site, and so that they only are applied to the surfaces as intended. And with respect to our blast and paint facility, which I think many of us here in the CERP are aware of or familiar with by now, these were voluntary facilities that we built out into our shipyard, equipping them with regenerative thermal oxidizers, essentially giant vacuums with ovens at the end of them that capture the harmful VOCs from parts where we're painting big giant ship blocks or panels, plates being sent on their way to be assembled into these blocks. We capture and destroy those VOCs for where they can fit. And since the implementation, we've seen our VOC emissions drop by about 60%. So again, a massive win from an emissions reduction perspective. And this was a voluntary measure done in collaboration with the APCD many years before my time. Next slide, please. For our diesel engines, for those of you who may not know this, or you might have seen if you were a part of our annual notification video that we've done over the last couple of years, NASCO actually operates more than 90 cranes in our shipyard, and almost all of them are electric. The only ones that are actually powered by diesel are the gantry cranes, the whirly cranes that you see like in the photo there. Those are powered by diesel generator packages, unfortunately, because of the way that they move around the shipyard on rails and they kind of intercross with each other. And we rely on them very heavily to be able to move parts and ship blocks throughout the yard, especially when they are what they call erecting the blocks onto the ship in the building position. But with that said, we've installed SCR systems, catalyst systems to help capture and reduce the emissions associated with those engines. We have long since retired kind of the lowest tier diesel engines, and for reference, there's a chart there that kind of shows the amount of emissions from a tier 1 to a tier 2 to down to a tier 4 engine. So when we say a tier 4 engine, that implies we are getting very close to the theoretical limit of 100% reduction. And so tier 4s are a big deal. And we were happy to require for all of our portable compressors from our subcontractors over the years that they are only allowed to use either electric or tier 4 packages if available. We are modernizing our crane engines. So the crane engines that you saw for 10 here in this photo and its sister number 11 back in 2023 had tier 4 final packages installed. And as part, again, oh, sorry, I will slow down a little bit more. There's a lot of information I want to cover, so I appreciate your patience. With respect to cranes 15 and 16, as Mohsen had mentioned, they are the largest cranes in our fleet that we have in the shipyard. We rely on them the most, and those are the ones we are targeting to be modernized with tier 4 final packages as well. So in combination of all of the measures that I very quickly went through, and again, I appreciate your patience, as we've seen our diesel PM drop by more than 95%, up to 96%, and our NOx emissions are down 74% over time. So again, massive, massive reductions that we're very proud of. Next slide, please. And so I wanted to then kind of take this time because I recognize that our facility is just a part of the Portside community and kind of start to open it up into a greater context as far as what does then our health risks mean in the context for the Portside community here and with all of you here. So just as a brief kind of summary here, it was my understanding that before joining the CSC that CARB had shared with the group their emissions year 2017 health risk assessment for the Portside, and they said this is the health risk that we've seen to date. It's a roughly 900 in a million, largely driven by diesel particulates, and most of it coming from emissions from outside the community. And I only bring this up because as we see in the time, if we go back in time to our 53 in 1 million health risk assessment done for emission year 2017, we're at 53. This is 900 for the entire Portside community. As of 2021, in retrospect, we were able to bring that down to 28. And with our risk reduction plan, we hope to bring it down to 22. And so the question then that I think is a very important one that we should open up and establish as a conversation topic with due diligence and due time is to ask, what are the emissions looking like through CARB's model analysis for 2025? Because I think that that's going to be a very insightful conversation and help inform then this next cycle of CERP actions that we are all kind of at this point in time ready to jump on. So with all that, thank you very much for your time. And most importantly, thank you for your patience for speaking very quickly. I really appreciate your understanding and patience on that. And with that, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrew. And this is, by the way, the last slide. And I just want to tell you that in conclusion, what are the next steps? So San Diego APCD will continue reviewing the risk reduction plan and take action on it once it determines that it complies with all the requirements. NASCO will be subject to annual progress reports, annual notifications, and annual public meetings until a health risk has been reduced below our Rule 1210 thresholds. And NASCO must reduce the cancer health risk to below 10 in a million within 5 years or within an extension that is granted by the APCD as allowed in compliance with Rule 1210. And again, this slide also provides a QR code when you can find the risk reduction plan and other relevant information for NASCO. And with that, we conclude our presentation and take it back for any public comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Millicent, and thank you, Andrew. So yeah, I just want to see whether there are comments, questions for presenters. I'm starting to see some hands up. So Monse.
Sí, tengo un comentario para esta presentación de NASCO. Para mí es decepcionante ver que NASCO pues esté pidiendo permiso para continuar contaminando nuestras comunidades portuarias al doble de lo que es permitido. Entendemos que la regla 1210 les da 5 años más, lo cual es demasiado para nuestra comunidad que ya está sobrecargada por tanta contaminación, no nada más de NASCO, de todos los otros negocios que tenemos en nuestras comunidades. Y pues nosotros quisiéramos que pudieran acelerar esos planes, no posponerlos, al contrario, acelerarlos, hacerlos en menos tiempo. Gracias.
Gracias, Monse. Margarita.
Bueno, buenas tardes. Mi comunidad ha sido afectada por estos contaminantes cancerígenos durante décadas. Cualquier extensión significaría más muertes por cáncer. No podemos permitir que sigamos esperando por esto. Gracias.
Gracias, Margarita. So we'll see if there are any other comments or questions for presenters.
¿Qué tipo de comentario o pregunta para los presentadores?
Looking at our chat, not seeing anything.
¿Puedo preguntar algo?
Rosalba? Yeah.
Están pidiendo más tiempo, pero también aquí tenemos otra empresa que está queriendo entrar a la comunidad y sumándola al tiempo que quiere NASCO, más la empresa que va a entrar, sería mucho más contaminación y yo no veo ninguna postura para reducir eso. Gracias.
Gracias, Rosalba. And then, Brice, I see your hand up as well.
Hi, Christian. Thank you. My question is, what are, if any, the penalties that NASCO experiences with not meeting, like complying with the requirements? Could you talk about that? And like, is there anything that APCD imposes on that agency?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayani Luther. I'm with the San Diego APCD, and thank you for your question. Maybe I can try to address that, unless Musan, you wanna address that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So NASCO, this plan aligns with our Rule 1210, which established thresholds for various health risks. The rule does have a provision for potential extensions. So NASCO proposal at this point does not, it fully aligns with our rule. So there's not a violation here because, again, the rule does ask the district to consider potential extension if the facility can successfully demonstrate that all available and feasible controls have been installed and in the operation. I also wanted to point it out that the NASCO's proposal at this point is to install additional measures to reduce cancer risk within less than 5 years, right? But I think what we are saying here is that the plan as it stands today is saying that based on the technology that is currently available today, the risk can only be reduced to 21 in a million. And so, basically we're just being transparent that there's a potential for an extension. But at this point, we don't know, because at the end of the period, end of the 5-year period, technology can be different. And so we needed to take that into consideration and reassess that when that time comes.
And I guess just a follow-up there, and I do see, Jasmine, you have your hand up. Just a clarification there, I guess. What is then the timing, I think, of that, like, further review? Is that happening at 5 years, or is that leading into that 5-year time period?
So NASCO is subject to annual progress reports and public meetings where we're going to be constantly evaluating technology and where they stand with regards to the health risk reduction. But our rule says that facilities that have elevated health risks have 5 years to reduce those risks. If it's not possible because technology is not available, then we could consider extensions of an additional 3 years for that. But again, that's only if everything that is possible has been installed, and then, everything that is feasible, and then an extension is potentially available under our rules.
Thank you for that clarification. Jasmine.
Yeah, I think my question is a great company to that point. I was wondering about what criteria that APCD used to identify technical feasibility. Like, for example, there are already operational battery-powered cranes in existence that are being used commercially, and there are battery charging available already. Considering the conversation we're going to have next with the MCAS, there's already some opportunities for on-site charging of battery powered equipment, for example. So yeah, it's important for, I think, me and our members to understand, like, was the technological feasibility something like, did you look outside of the United States to see how other kind of ports are doing it? Like, is there other possible, or did you just kind of like see what NASCO said they could do and just kind of take it at face value?
If I may, I would love to answer that question. Jasmine,
Andrew,
thank you.
Can the district answer first, if you don't mind? Because I
Please.
think that we are responsible for evaluating the plan and make a determination. And so we appreciate if you let us respond. And Mohsen, you can add it to what I'm about to say here. But yes, absolutely. This plan, which is available on our website, we put a link on the chat. It's a very extensive plan, and we have been evaluating this plan for the next several months, I think, since the beginning of the year. And so the technology was evaluated extensively. And, I think one of the slides, we're really trying to narrow down to what the problem really is, and that's the operations that are conducted on ships. There's a picture where there's a welder right outside the ship. And so it is very difficult to enclose these operations, because we also need to ensure the safety of that professional that is conducting that operation. That is really the challenge. I mean, I'm simplifying for the purpose, and we are very Happy to continue this discussion with the team here, but I'm just trying to, narrow down to what the main challenge is, and that's the operations they are conducted. If you go to NASCO, you're going to see a lot of professionals outside that ship, and it's not feasible to enclose that and then filter those emissions at this point.
Yeah, and if I can,
yeah,
if I just add something, I think, Jasmine, that's a good question. Why not a battery-powered engine be used? But as I mentioned, 85% of the remaining risk is not from diesel engines. It's from welding and marine coating operations, which is what Marina is explaining. It is very hard to control and reduce when you're doing outside in confined spaces. So even if they had zero diesel emissions, their risk would not be below 10 in a million. So we're trying to address what's the biggest contributor to the risk. And the diesel engine risks are not putting them over 10 in a million. It's the other operations. Go ahead, Andrew, if you want to add anything.
No, just not too much to belabor the point, but on the question of how did we look overseas at other operations, and actually this is something that as part of our fleet electrification efforts too, I was very intimately tied into knowing what's the state of battery technology, where is it going, who's manufacturing it, who's refining all of that. That's something that we follow very, very closely. And one minor correction, Jasmine, is that we are not a port operation, we are a shipyard, and the level of activity that we use these cranes and that we rely on them for their operations, meaning the duty cycle of these cranes are typically much higher demand versus your average kind of goods movement crane through a port. And so all of those things were taken into consideration as part of that one sole aspect for the risk reduction plan that we put together. But it is a very good question because you only see the published kind of summary at the end of that and not necessarily the sausage being made over time.
So let's see if there are any other questions or comments. I know I'm looking at time. I guess my final question, I think this is for staff, and Jack, I see your hand up, would be what is the best way for the CSC itself to provide feedback or comments when it comes to the risk reduction plan? Is there a way, a format, or beyond, I think, this presentation, a way for this group to be engaged in that conversation? If there is any follow-up, Milton, Andrew, and team.
Christian, thank you for that question. And actually, I think we would encourage anybody who is interested in not just even NASCO. I heard there was other facilities. If they're interested in learning about the Hotspots program and what facilities, whether it's Portside community or outside, that are experiencing elevated health risks, to sign up on our Toxics Hotspots program, and they'll get information. And the reason I'm saying that is that we actually send out 3 public notices in April, on April 18, June 26, and August 20th, and ask or let the public know that the NASCO has submitted a risk reduction plan, and they revised it a couple of times. And we provided a 30-day comment period for the public to receive any feedback. And we didn't receive any feedback, by the way. But please sign up for our email distribution, and you will get these emails for all facilities, not just NASCO.
Yeah, and I'll ask our team, I think, if that's something we can include as part of our weekly digest. I think it's a good opportunity, I think, to share that information. Jack.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mosa and Marina and Andrew for this presentation tonight. As I look ahead on our agenda to item 5, where we're going to be talking about measuring success, and listening to what and thinking about that as we were listening to the presentation earlier. This is something we've been talking about consistently over the last 5 years, is how will we ever measure success? And are we having any success? Is there any success to report? And I think that part of what I hope everybody appreciates hearing tonight is the success that has occurred because of the regulatory efforts that the district has been putting into place now for well over a decade. and the measurements we talked about tonight just go back a decade. But to see the reduction in emissions that have occurred because of the regulatory efforts of the district and because of the compliance measures taken by NASCO in this case, sometimes required, many of which were not required, many of which were completely creative and new because they knew that they were going to have some benefits, such as those painting booths that were depicted in the picture. So I just hope and want to highlight, hope people will appreciate that we are making progress here. Emissions are being reduced to a significant percentage, and that's exactly what we wanted to see for the community and hope to maintain. And everything that we heard tonight here is how the district is going to be monitoring and working with NASCO to ensure that that progress continues.
Thank you, Jack. And then I think we'll close out with Margarita. Margarita.
Bueno, buenas noches, perdón, no podía entrar. Yo como comunidad, pues necesito saber cómo van a hacer para reducir la contaminación y cómo van a cambiar las cosas que contaminan, la soldadura, la pintura, las soluciones que usan y todas las herramientas que usan en ASCO. Yo tengo familiares que han trabajado ahí y yo sé que hay mucha contaminación. No sé si van a usar soldadura que no contamina o qué es lo que piensan hacer, porque muchas de las cosas que usan, todo contamina. Y hablan de muchas cosas que se me hacen un poco ilógicas a como lo dicen, porque no es tan fácil reducir y no creo que cumplan lo que quieren hacer. Gracias, es todo.
Gracias, Margarita. So I want to make sure that we're giving ample time for the next presentation. So thank you, folks. Andrew, Mosa, and Yanni, I think as well. Thank you for jumping in and sharing this information.
Thank you, and everybody. Appreciate your patience.
So we're going to move over to the MCAS presentation. So Peter, I saw you on here. Let us know if you're ready to go.
Sure, yeah, if you can get the slide deck up there. All right, thank you for your time. Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Eicher. I'm a principal planner at the Port of San Diego. As many of you know and maybe remember, the Maritime Clean Air Strategy was adopted in 2021, and it has long-term goals to reduce the pollution from our maritime operations, the air pollution from maritime operations by 2030. And so we are at the midway point of implementing our plan. And we're here tonight to talk to you about some of the things that we've been able to accomplish over the last few years, and then also start getting some of your input about how we can keep this thing going, maintain the momentum, and really reach those 2030 goals over the next 5 years. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Serena Basra, who's going to run through the presentation for you. And then a number of us will be available to answer any questions after that. Thank you. Go ahead, Serena.
Thanks, Peter. And good evening, everyone. My name is Serena Basra. I'm a climate and sustainability analyst for the Port. And we really appreciate your time here today as we talk about the Maritime Clean Air Strategy. We are in the early stages of conducting community outreach, and we've already began meeting with local stakeholder groups and community groups. And we had our first community conversation meeting last week in Barrio Logan. And as Christian mentioned, we'll be having our next meeting in a national city on November 5th at the Aquatic Center. And we'll be sure to drop in some information in the chat about those upcoming meetings and some other documents that we'll be talking about today. Next slide, please. First, let me start off by providing some context on the Port's Maritime Clean Air Strategy. This slide shows the structure of the MCAS, which is the Port's roadmap for improving air quality and reducing emissions from port-related activities. It really focuses on supporting efficient and modern maritime operations. The MCAS is a non-regulatory policy document that focuses on improving local air quality. And as Peter mentioned, it was adopted 4 years ago in 2021. and it includes several near-term goals and objectives for 2026 and long-term goals for 2030. And so we've met half of our 2026 goals, and we've implemented 80% of our objectives, and this has helped us make huge progress within these past 4 years. On the left here on the slide, you can get a sense of the emissions that we're tackling, everything from cargo handling equipment, commercial harbor craft. We're looking at shipyards, heavy-duty trucks, our vehicles, ocean-going vessels, and even rail. And then we also have 3 stakeholder-driven priorities on the right, and these include community enrichment, public health, and enabling. That's also known as implementation of the MCAS. And so altogether, we have 40 separate initiatives, and these lead to projects, partnerships, and studies. And there's many co-benefits from our Clean Air program. Just to name a few, there's improved health, greater access to the Bay, education and training, and so much more. Next slide, please. Okay, so as it relates to the MCAS, we're talking about a very specific area along San Diego Bay where maritime operations impact daily lives. This area is what we call the Portside community neighborhoods, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And so this was designated under California's AB617 program for communities most impacted by air pollution. These neighborhoods include Barrio Logan, Logan Heights, Sherman Heights, and West National City. And on the map here, we have our 2 marine terminals. So you can see our 10th Avenue Marine Terminal to the north, and then to the south is our National City Marine Terminal. And in the center of the map, kind of in the gap between the green shaded area is Naval Base San Diego. And then the green shaded area reflects the AB617 boundary. Because these neighborhoods are located next to industrial operations, marine terminals, near major corridors such as the freeways, they experience more direct impacts of diesel emissions and poor air quality. And that's why the MCAS puts such a strong emphasis on reducing emissions in these communities. Next slide, please. So in 2019, the Portside community was selected by the California Air Resources Board to develop a community emissions reduction plan known as the CERP. And while the CERP was being developed, so was the Port's Maritime Clean Air Strategy Program. The MCAS is complementary to the CERP plan, and the Port helps participate by implementing these 10 CERP actions that are listed on this slide. And we do so by addressing maritime operations on port tidelands that's within our jurisdiction. These CERP actions include deployment of zero-emission trucks and adoption of zero-emission technologies, reducing emissions from commercial harbor craft, supporting compliance with truck routes, and more. And I will point these out in the following slides. Next slide, please. So this map is showing just how much investment is already happening around San Diego Bay. To date, more than $227 million has been committed to maritime electrification and freight efficiency. The port and its many partners have invested in a number of projects. And just to name a few, this includes supporting Harbor Drive 2.0, reducing emissions from cargo handling equipment by transitioning diesel pieces to electric, focusing on operational efficiencies to reduce emissions from harbor craft with the support of Crowley's all-electric tugboat in San Diego Bay. And so these projects that I'm mentioning also tie back to those CERP actions in the previous slide. Next slide, please. Each year, we do present an update of the MCAS to our Board of Commissioners, and we publish an annual status report, which we refer to as the MCAS Highlights Report. I do believe the highlights report has likely been shared with some of you via email at some point, but we can share that again with you. And I think Jazz did, so thank you, Jazz. And we also have the Spanish version of the highlights report available for you to review as well. And so the highlights report includes updates on our clean air program. It shares progress and accomplishments that we've made over the past year, such as increase in use of cargo handling equipment on our terminals that help us reduce diesel emissions, enhancing our shore power infrastructure at our cruise ship terminals so that ships can plug in when they are docked to save fuel and reduce air and noise pollution, and so much more. And all this information can also be found on our website. Next slide, please. Okay, so on this slide, we are showing our overall emission reduction since 2019. So when the MCAS was adopted in 2021, it used data from our 2019 maritime air emissions inventory. But we have recently completed our maritime air emissions inventory for 2024. And so this graphic is specifically showing the reductions in emissions since 2019 compared to 2024. And so you can see here that diesel particulate matter, one of the most harmful pollutants for public health, is down by 46%. Nitrogen oxides, which contribute to smog and respiratory illnesses, are down by 32%. And even with continued cargo growth, our carbon dioxide emissions are down by 10%. And so this shows that we're moving goods more efficiently and also doing so with a smaller carbon footprint. Next slide, please. And these emission reductions are a result of various port initiatives along with the help from our many partners. This slide is kind of showing a collage of pictures from our efforts that we've been doing. And so we've been doing everything from asking vessels to slow down when they are approaching San Diego Bay, which helps reduce emissions. We received the first all-electric tugboat, which is helping assist with vessel tug activity in the bay. We've also received the first all-electric mobile harbor cranes at our 10th Avenue Marine Terminal, and this has also helped us reduce diesel emissions. We're improving our shore power connectivity so ships can turn off their engines and connect to power when they're docked. And we are engaging in ongoing community outreach to make sure that we're sharing progress and updates along the way, just like we're doing this evening with you all. Next slide, please. So Peter had mentioned this, but we are currently in the early stages of conducting community outreach. And so we're really trying to maintain momentum with the Maritime Clean Air Strategy as we talk to various stakeholder and community groups. So again, we really appreciate your time. When we adopted the MCAS in 2021, which was 4 years ago, we have made significant progress, but we're now halfway through at a checkpoint. And so this period is giving us an opportunity to check in with you all and develop and refine strategies for the next 5 years that will help us meet our long-term goals for 2030. And so it's really important for us to gather public input and ensure that the plan reflects community priorities, your priorities. And so we'd love to hear your feedback. Next slide, please. And this has been mentioned a few times. I'm just going to say it again. We have our upcoming community conversation on November 5th, next Wednesday. That's at the National City Aquatic Center. Parking is fairly easy there. There'll be food for dinner. So please spread the word and attend if you can. We really appreciate it. I think the next slide is my conclusion slide. Yep. All right. So I just want to thank you all for your time. And our email address is at the bottom right there. And so is the link to our website where you can find so much information on the Maritime Clean Air Strategy and other port programs. But I will open it up to the audience to see if there are any questions. I think
Serena, I
Andrew...
do see that you had this slide as well with some
Oh,
specific
yes.
questions as well.
Yeah, so we have some discussion questions here, if folks want to chime in, or I'm happy to just take any other questions that folks might have.
Sounds good. And I can read these off pretty quickly just for the interpreter to also go through them. So the questions, are there local partnerships you think we should be exploring to accelerate progress? The second question, from your perspective, what impacts of this work are most important for your community? Examples, health, quality of life, jobs, environment. And then the last question, how can the port improve the ways we share updates and progress on clean air initiatives we are pursuing in your community, or with your community, sorry.
Thanks,
So with that, Andrew, I saw your hand up, so Andrew's up first.
All right, thanks, Christian. And Serena, thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting to kind of get an update on everything going on with the MCAS actions. I noted, as a big data fan, I saw that you had said that we've accomplished to date 85% shore power usage of the vessels visiting the port. And I just wanted to point out that from my understanding of the CARB emissions models, the emissions from ocean-going vessels were among the higher amount of sources, to date in 2025, and they're actually expected to grow as you kind of get more, ships visiting ports of call. So, as part of the MCAS strategy development, did you guys consult something like the CARB emissions models and kind of take a look at trends and see where that was going, or how did you identify the priority projects to pursue?
Yeah, and maybe my colleague Peter or Phil can help me answer this question in regards to our inventory and the information that went into that. Phil or Peter, do you have anything?
Yeah, just a quick clarifier, the 85% is vessel calls to our cruise ship terminals. So not all vessel types, because not all ocean-going vessels are capable of plugging in. Refrigerated vessels, car carriers, and cruise ships are all required to plug in. That's really what we've prioritized in doing so. So we are hopeful that the other vessel types over time are retrofitting their vessels and we're able to plug them in. But in the meantime, we are exploring other alternatives to reduce those emissions while they are at berth. One of them is the emissions capture control system that is otherwise known as the bonnet. That is down at National City right now and working on some of those ships there to reduce those emissions, again, while they are at berth. But a lot of the priorities that are established in the MCAS from original, and then even that we're looking forward to going with is, we know our emission sources, and then we know, we've done a lot of technology feasibility studies like you've done, for what you were just talking about previously. Technology is rapidly changing, so that's always an evolving field. We're always trying to keep up with the modern, the latest technology and operations protocols and those kind of things that we can really learn from and implement in our operations. So that's part of it. And then again, it's really just up to the community also to give us ideas, partnerships that come forward and want to join us in implementing this program, get those money. A lot of our tenants are the ones that own the equipment. The port really doesn't own all that much of the equipment. So we're always looking forward to establish partnerships with folks.
Right. Thank you.
You bet.
Monse.
Sí, pues este es mi comentario. Para mí es bueno ver que las emisiones en general están disminuyendo, pero es difícil notar esas reducciones en mi comunidad. Los camiones todavía están parados con el motor encendido, los hemos visto. Eso es en mi vecindario, también en National City. Así que espero que pues que sigamos presionando para establecer metas pues que sean ambiciosas, ¿verdad? Y que encontremos formas para que se haga una adopción más rápida de camiones de cero emisiones, porque, por ejemplo, en National City, USDG Fuels va a entrar porque está pidiendo un permiso, pero no están respetando esta regla de tener camiones cero emisiones, al menos no hasta ahorita. Ellos quieren entrar y están metiendo o van a meter camiones de diésel, más de 70 camiones al día, 24 horas, 7 días a la semana. Entonces, ¿cómo podemos hablar de reducciones en las comunidades portuarias si hay negocios que todavía están queriendo entrar en nuestra comunidad y pues sin hacer ningún esfuerzo, sin seguir ningún tipo de regla? Gracias.
Gracias, Monse, por el comentario.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was a question there. I mean, the MCAS does have the long-term goal to have all of the trucks that come to our marine terminals to be zero emissions. You know, it is sometimes hard to notice the improvements in air quality because there are so many different emission sources all throughout San Diego County and the region. You know, the MCAS is trying to address the maritime operations that the Port of San Diego, you know, operates and can control. And even then, control is kind of a tough word because we don't even control everything ourselves either. But, you know, it is kind of tough when you see decisions that you don't agree with from other places. I'm not quite sure what else we can say about that, but we are, you know, certainly dedicated to moving forward with our goals for 100% zero emission trucks. And, you know, we're open to any ideas that you have to help us in that regard. You know, the technology for trucks has advanced, it has gotten better, but it still remains very expensive, and charging infrastructure is still very scarce. And we've run into some big challenges with trucks, but that doesn't mean we're deterred in our motivation, and we're going to continue to move forward on those goals.
Thank you, Peter. And Monse, I see your hand up again. I'm not sure if it's a leftover hand from before or if you have anything else to add.
Yo quisiera hacer una pregunta. NASCO tiene compañías que le ayudan cuando ellos tienen muchísimo trabajo. Y normalmente, tal vez NASCO tenga el cuidado para no poner más contaminantes en el medio ambiente, pero las compañías que usa no lo hacen, porque yo tengo una aquí que cuando tienen mucho trabajo, hasta de noche lo hacen, porque en el día yo los reporto. Entonces necesita NASCO también ver a quién les está proporcionando el trabajo, porque así no se puede. En mis expectativas, yo digo que deberían de ponerse un poco más estrictos, mucho más estrictos con las compañías a las cuales NASCO les da trabajo.
Y Rosalba, yo pienso el comentario ha de haber sido para la presentación anterior. La notamos. Andrew, I know you're on camera. I don't know if I don't want to diverge, I think, from the current topic, but I think that the comment just is on like folks that might be doing contract work.
Sí, ya entiendo, gracias. No, por los subcontractors que se trabajan acá en NASCO, en el shipyard, nuestro programa we oversee that as well. So if there is any perception that there's people that can kind of skirt the rules or kind of avoid any oversight from my program, that's very wrong, and I would like to correct that right now. That is not the case in any shifts, either day or night. We don't allow contractors to do anything that we wouldn't do ourselves.
Yes. And Andrew, thank you for jumping in. I know it's a little bit shift, but Rosalba, gracias por el comentario. Igualmente, como lo tomamos. I want to see if there are any other questions. If not, then we'll move forward with. Carissa?
Ajá. Mira, dice que no tiene ninguna de sus contratistas que hagan eso. Yo literalmente vivo al lado de uno de ellos y yo los he visto trabajar en la mañana, a las 5 de la mañana o hasta muy tarde. Y la verdad que diga que ninguno de sus subcontratistas lo hagan, la verdad. No sé si vayan ellos y vean a todos los que en donde trabajan. ¿Sí? Decir que no pasa es como decir que yo te estoy mintiendo de lo que me está pasando si vivo a un lado de ellos.
Gracias, Carissa. Sí, vamos a tomar el comentario y se lo pasamos para Andrew. Brisa.
With respect to, I believe it was Rosalba's comment about the subcontractors, could the port also just respond to that question about oversight to subcontractors who work with the port?
Yeah, what was the question specifically again?
If the subcontractors are also following the same environmental regulations that the port upholds as well?
I believe so. Peter and Phil, do we know anything about our subcontractors?
So I think that the question was how much oversight we have on the program that was just discussed by APCD. That's a program administered by APCD, so we do not enforce those rules. That would be APCD's role. But certainly, we're happy to work with NASCO and anybody on
I'm
the
sorry,
working waterfront
Peter.
if they have
I'm sorry.
projects to
I'm
reduce
sorry, Peter.
emissions.
Can we pause for a minute? I think the interpretation channels are crossed.
Thank
So
you,
the
Shalem.
interpreter,
It did for a
yeah,
minute.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I just wanted to pause
you're
because I
right.
couldn't hear you, Peter.
Okay.
So interpreter, can you hear me? You're in the wrong channel. And yeah. So if you can go to the Spanish channel to interpret what I'm saying in the English channel. All right. Sorry, Peter. I'm going to turn it back to you. I just couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe the question was our enforcement of regulations at the shipyards. Was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, basically, APCD, the presentation that just preceded us, they were talking about the rules that APCD enforces. They are the overseer of those regulations. So we do not have those kind of enforcement actions. But I will say that whether it's a shipyard or a tenant on our terminals, we are always happy to foster partnerships, to come up with projects to reduce emissions. That can be matching money for getting an electric truck or a piece of cargo handling equipment or whatever it is. So we are open to work on a partnership basis, but we are not the regulatory agency that would be enforcing those rules. That's really APCD's role.
Thank you, Peter. So I'm looking at our chats to see if there's any other comments or questions, and if not, then we'll move on to our next agenda item.
Thank you. If I could just make one last
Yeah.
comment, our email address was on that last slide. It's just mcas@portofsandiego.org. So if anybody has questions that come up, comments, ideas, want to talk about this more, please do email us. We really want to get your input. And thank you again for your time tonight.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Serena.
Thank
We
you.
see Jazz has added that contact info on the chat. So folks, yeah, again, if you have any questions, any comments, feel free to reach out to Peter and Serena, and then I think, yeah, we can go from there. Thank you, folks. So I'm gonna keep moving through this, our agenda. So the next item that we have is a slight kind of part two of the conversation we had at our previous meeting. The reason that we're having a part two for this is that we were pretty crunched on time when we were wrapping up our last meeting with this topic. There were plenty of comments and feedback that we were hearing from folks, but we did want to make sure that we provided kind of like just a second opportunity just for folks that wanted to respond to any of the questions that we had. We're not going to go through all the content that we have for this. You can look at the notes that were approved at the start of our meeting today. But we did want to kind of, again, just provide that second opportunity just for anyone that didn't have a chance to provide a feedback to the questions that we had. So I'm going to go over this pretty quickly, and then we'll pause for those questions and then see if anyone wants to jump in. Again, this is a discussion of how do we start defining program success, starting to identify some areas where more information and research is needed. This is going to help inform CSC priorities on the work and how we move forward past year 5. It also informs what would be then included as part of that 5-year Portside report. Moving through this is building on CERP strategies, those 5-year check-in focus groups. We know that folks have been participating with David and Lauren on these conversations. And then also the UC Davis research. And we have that, I believe, linked in the chat as well. Quickly, here are the 3 questions that we had for folks as part of this conversation. Again, these are kind of broad questions, but the first one that we had for folks is how do you define success for community air program, for the community protection air program in the Portside community? Our second question, what resonates with you on what's been shared so far, and then what may be missing in what has been shared so far. So we do want to provide an opportunity for folks that maybe did not provide their comments. We did have thorough feedback and good participation. But again, we felt like that there might have been a couple voices that maybe didn't have a chance to participate, given the timing at that meeting.
And I apologize, Christian. Is there a slide that shows what was shared?
We
that
don't
might
have
help?
the full
Okay.
Yeah, but that is included in the notes. Jazz, if you can maybe include our notes or the link to the notes, and that would be encapsulated in that section. So folks' feedback and contributions to these questions. And again, this is just a quick, and Philip?
Yeah, thanks. Are these questions for us to provide
Yes,
feedback on?
yeah,
right
so
now?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
sure, I wasn't at the last meeting, so maybe I can weigh in on this a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah, I think, ultimately the program is called the Community Air Protection Program. And so it's really about reducing pollution in the Portside community. So the ability for us to measure that is really important and compare it to, whatever the baseline was at the beginning of the program. I think that's how one way that I would define success. I think as we've heard tonight and what my knowledge is of different technologies to reduce emissions, there's actually a lot of technologies out there that can reduce emissions, and we're deploying them. And we want to see improvement in the Portside communities. So I think it comes down to what's the air quality and how are we doing in it, and source attribute, how do we attribute the proper sources as well? So that's all for now.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. And again, I see that Jazz added the notes from last meeting. We can see folks' contributions to these questions and then ideas. Let's spend another minute or two. Andrew, it's your comment. And read it out just so that folks in the interpretation channel can see it as well. I think it would be incredibly important to get us, for us to get a sense of what CARB models are showing. We were referencing 2016, 2017 risks from Cal Environment and Portside HRA. The model trends are pretty eye-opening. If our counterparts from CARB can share anything here in tonight's forum, that would be very helpful. So I want to see if there's anyone from CARB that would like to respond to that. And then, so I'm not sure if we have anyone from CARB today, but Jasmine.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think just overall community partnerships and engagement, like this meeting, like the vital work that happened in successfully passing the MCAS that the port just presented, which was like a port and community effort to like make that happen, are just like good examples of what it looks like to have successful community partnership and engagement and things like the Community Air Protection Program. And I want to see, more updates and more engagement that elevates the community voices, like the community members here, and telling their and having space to tell their story, because it's an inspiring story. And I don't know if like a lot of people in San Diego and a lot of people working around the ports or that are in the APCD target area know about the positive impacts that have come from AB617 and all the work that's been done in this space. So like, how do we tell that story better? And how do we do it by also like elevating the voices and the successes of like the MCAS and those goals and the others that have been presented in this group?
Thank you, Jasmine. Appreciate that. So I do want to move on to what we had. And I'm seeing that actually we might have someone from CARB. Cynthia, I see that you're on. I'm not sure if you would like to respond to Andrew's comment in the chat.
Yeah. Is it in regards to like models of emissions, models of just like pollutions? I think I kind of missed it while I was trying to get some water. But if you can kind of repeat that question, that would be super helpful.
And Andrew, I'm gonna go to you if you want to add anything else beyond that.
Sure, thank you, and good evening, Cynthia. Sorry to put you on the spot, but just with respect to CARB's MFAC and CPAM updates, it's my understanding that actually MFAC was recently updated, and when you emission time, there's
Is Andrew cutting out, or is that just
Yeah,
me?
sorry, Andrew. If you want to
Oh.
cut, if you want to stop your video, and then maybe they'll improve your bandwidth a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. I'm referring to the MFAC and CPAM model outputs with respect to heavy-duty trucks, ocean-going vessels, kind of all the other sources that are emitting diesel PM 2.5.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. I think I'm not super familiar with all of the models for MFAC or CPAM, but I'm more than happy to connect with the CARB divisions that are in charge of it and see if there's any models that showcase that data that we can see kind of like a trend. But I will have to come back to you on that.
Cynthia, sorry to interrupt. I think
Yeah,
we
no.
lost translation in Spanish. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
the oh,
This is back.
okay, interpretation is back on. Thanks. Sorry about that.
No worries. I'm just going to repeat what I just said, but I'm not specifically well versed in the CPAM and the MFAC and the CPAM models that kind of go align with the ocean-going vessels and the marine vessels and the emissions coming from that. But I can connect with my peers at CARB to see if there are updated models that show that data.
Thank you, Cynthia. Andrew, I don't know if you have any other follow-ups on that, but I think that's helpful information, Cynthia, and I think getting maybe a little bit of an update, maybe at one of the upcoming meetings, would be great. And that actually kind of goes into this fourth and final question that we had that we showed to folks is like, what information, research, or tools are needed to determine program success? And I think, Andrew, I think that information of models that could be updated, and I think will be helpful. I think just having a little bit more of current data. Is there anything else that folks can think of when it comes to this information? I think, Jasmine, you talked about that storytelling part as information of community voices being weaved into this as well. But want to see if there's anything else that folks would like to add. But if not, then we'll move forward with our agenda. And I don't see anything. And with that, so I think we'll move on. And actually, Sean, I might pass it over to you, I think, just to give us what are the next steps as part of this conversation. And I think we shared this at the previous meeting again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian, and thanks to everyone who shared. What our next steps are is based upon the feedback that we received tonight, and then also the previous night, and also there was a lot of feedback that was received during the focus group sessions. We're going to identify what kind of information that we have internally at APCD, and also what kind of information does CARB have, right? And so today, Cynthia talked a bit about needing to go back and see, are those models available? Is that something that they'll need to produce or what have you? See what's already available, see if there's any information that we'll need to gather from other partners or publicly available sources. I know that in previous conversations, folks also talked about public health improvements also being an important metric for success. So in that example, we would need to connect with our public health counterparts at the County of San Diego to see if we can get some of that data from them as well. What we'd like to do with that information is include that community feedback in the post year 5 framework, which we hope to bring a draft to the CSC at the November meeting. If you recall, the framework is essentially, how are we going to move together collectively, right, beyond year 5 as a Portside CSC, from the logistical elements of things, like are we meeting every month? Is it quarterly, bi-monthly, to more around, elements in how we'd like to continue with monitoring, to what types of things would be important for that ongoing reporting as well. And then the last thing here is add these metrics to the best of our ability within the 5-year Portside report. This report hopes to kind of tell a story, to Jazz's earlier point, tell a story of what the past 5 years has accomplished, what else we need work on, right, as well. Root that not only in community voice and also stakeholder voice, but also root that in some of these metrics that we've already began discussing today. Using the information that's currently available, I anticipate that there might be some metrics in which we don't have that information readily available, but we do want to note that so that when there are additional resources or from CARB or maybe outside researchers, we have in our back pocket, hey, these are the research items that are still pending that we haven't been able to get the data that we needed to do that kind of additional evaluation around success. So those are roughly the 3 next steps. We're going to continue in this conversation next month, like I said, in a slightly different way. Really, the past 2 months was about defining the success. And then the conversation November is around what does our collective effort look like post year 5 as well. We're not reinventing the CERP or recreating a CERP. It's really looking at what's currently in existence, what needs more work, but also the other element is just kind of the logistical pieces to it, right? How often are we meeting? Those types of things that will also be kind of discussed. And shared with you all for additional feedback. I do want to note that that 5-year framework deeply informed by the focus group conversations, the surveys that many of you participated in the month of August and September, and also deeply informed by previous research that CARB has led, such as the UC Davis study by Dr. Jonathan London as well. So taking the learnings from also outside researchers as well to inform that framework moving forward. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Christian.
And that actually takes us to the end of our meeting. So we're just want to make sure we provide an opportunity to see if there are any other public comments. And Jack, I see your hand up.
It's just a quick question. I'm a little confused. Shalom, are we going to have CARB at the next meeting then present to share with us some of the answers that to the questions that Andrew asked to give us a sense of what emissions look like now versus what they look like 10 years ago?
Yeah, I would defer to CARB on that. I anticipate that Cynthia will need to connect with the emissions inventory folks at CARB to see if that would be possible by next month. But I would defer to CARB in terms of when they'd be available to come back to present that specific information.
And just I would like to add that we have asked that of CARB already. So that request has been made. But yeah, we would definitely defer to CARB and Cynthia, any support that you can give us in terms of helping us bring that information back to the group. We would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cynthia, I'm not to put you in the spot, but yeah, I think just that request, if that's a possibility.
Oh my gosh, Christian, you're always putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
No worries, but yeah, I can connect with the emissions inventory team regarding that. I know that they are kind of at capacity at the moment, so it might be a little bit delayed, but we can hopefully get someone from the emissions inventory team to kind of present that data for y'all.
Thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate that. And Jack, I think that we'll look to then make sure that we're providing that space, I think, early on in the agenda for that.
Great. Thanks, Christian. Thanks, Domingo.
Hey, folks. Quick next steps. So please look out for our weekly digest. There's a lot of information that I'll share today. A lot of information I think that we'll want to make sure that we're providing in the contact info for folks or opportunities for input on some of these things that folks have shared. So just a reminder there for folks. And then with that, that actually takes us to the end of our meeting. So before we close, I want to see if there are any other comments or announcements. And then if not, then we'll move to close our meeting.
Can I just make a very quick comment? I
Yeah.
want to acknowledge Silvia. This is her last meeting with
Yes.
us today, and I know we've been exchanging some messages on the chat, but just really wanted to take a moment to thank you, Silvia, for all your contributions to this group and to the community. You've been an amazing CSC member from the beginning. We're very glad that we were able to work with you all these years, and to remind you that even if you're not an active CSC member, these meetings are open to the public, so you're welcome on this space anytime that you have a chance to join us, and we would always be happy to see you here.
Yeah, I just want to echo that, Domingo. And yeah, anytime that you happen to have some time available from 5 to 7, we'll be here. Monse. Monse, no sé si puedes.
Sí, igual, Silvia, como parte de la comunidad de National City, igual, muchas gracias por todo el tiempo que pudiste participar y que estuviste en persona, igual, cuando teníamos las juntas en persona, era muy buena tu participación y tus comentarios. Y también quiero hacer un comentario público. Como dije hace ratito, USDG Fuels está solicitando un permiso para entrar en National City. Entonces, el 7 de octubre fuimos al City Council, pues se suponía que era el voto final, pero no hubo ese voto final porque se le dio una oportunidad a USDG Fuels para que presente un plan para hacer, pues que tengan camiones cero emisiones para este proyecto. Entonces, yo quería pedir si había una oportunidad, ya que sé que hay aquí un representante de CARF, que pudieran revisar este plan o este proyecto cuando sea presentado al City Council y a la comunidad para ver si realmente es, puede funcionar, ¿verdad? Porque nosotros sabemos que no es tan fácil esto, por eso es que no hemos querido aprobar este proyecto o que estamos en contra, pues, del proyecto, pero si hay un plan para cero emisiones, queremos que CAR pudiera, pues, revisar ese plan y que lo tomen en cuenta, ¿verdad? Y igual APCD que nos apoyen con esto porque, pues, sí es algo que va a impactar mucho a la comunidad de National City. Gracias.
Gracias, Monse. So, yeah, so what I'm hearing, I think, is that just a request for technical support, I think, with reviewing the plan that project is putting forth. And I think the request is for both CARB and also for APCD staff, I think, to support with and maybe providing review and then some feedback there, I think, on behalf, I think, of community members in National City. So I think, yeah.
Perdón, podría agregar algo ya que
Sí.
termine. Perdón la interrupción.
No, sí. No, sí, ya puedo.
Sí, mira, lo que pasa es de que no tenemos una representación ahora sí que fuerte porque realmente el cabildo de la ciudad está a favor de esta industria y sí queremos que se involucre más gente para ver cómo se puede reducir toda la contaminación si ellos llegan a entrar, porque imagínate, 70 camiones al día, 7 días a la semana, 24 horas, está difícil, que se supone que ellos no se van a hacer responsables si hay algún desastre o no saben cómo lo van a manejar. Y si quisiéramos que ustedes como puerto estuvieran también involucrados en esto. Gracias.
Yeah, and Shalom, I don't know if you have any thoughts there or feedback, or Domingo, I think I see you going off mute, so.
Yes, thank you. Voy a hacer mis comentarios en español. Gracias, Monse y Rosalba, por sus comentarios. Nada más para mencionar que APCD, de hecho, envió un comentario, enviamos un comentario por escrito a la ciudad de National City en la reunión pasada. para resaltar los impactos que ya hay en la comunidad y cómo posiblemente pudiera haber impactos adicionales y pues cómo es importante preservar cualquier tipo de progreso que hayamos logrado en términos de limpiar el aire en la comunidad y es algo, y es un mensaje que podemos seguir recalcando, ¿no? Cómo es importante que los proyectos que entran en la comunidad estén alineados con las metas del CERP para asegurarnos de que todo progreso en cuestión de mejorar la calidad del aire se mantenga y se preserve para los años que vienen, ¿no? Entonces, definitivamente hemos estado participando y continuaremos haciéndolo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Domingo.
Yeah,
And Shalom, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add, and yes, Phil, it's USDG fills was what they're mentioning. What Monse was saying that it sounds like there's a meeting next week. We can certainly put the information for that meeting at National City in the just kind of the weekly roundup for the listserv this week, and so we'll share that meeting information with Kearns and West in case there's folks who'd like to participate and or listen and learn more about what is being proposed. So we'll make sure to get that in the listserv this week.
Yeah, thank you, Shalom. Just looking at time, I think we're about to close out. So I do want to, before we go out, let's see if someone would like to make a motion for us to close our meeting.
I'll take the motion, my last motion for the
Thank you,
4 or 5 years.
I was hoping for that. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, everybody, for all you do.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Pues a todos, buenas noches.
And we're still looking for a second.
It's Jack Monger. I'll second.
Hey, thank you, Jack. So all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. So with that, we wrap up today's meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And Sylvia, thank you so much for being here with us again. And I think Shalom and Domingo said, if you ever have a time, open time from 5 to 7, we'll be here. So these meetings are open and hopefully we'll see you around. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, everyone. Gracias a todos. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Gracias, Silvia.
Bye now.